Thank you, Rob. We're now back in open session, and I can confirm that we only spoke about the item that was listed in our in-camera session agenda. Mary Lou, please. Oh, sorry. Councillor Greg, did you have something? Go ahead.
If I can just try to work through some of what Mary Lou had already covered. She had spoke to a $20,000 for a citizen reporting tool for customer relationship management through the communications department, and $15,000 for a website engagement tool for the county's website from the one-time funding reserve. I guess what I'd like to hear is, can you identify the problems that exist now, and what are we trying to achieve in the future, and what is the subsequent cost in terms of supporting the outcomes of those expenditures?
Rob?
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Warden. Good evening, County Council. To answer those questions, I'll break that apart for you. So just starting with the citizens reporting tool, what we're looking at acting on here is some recommendations from the communication strategy to improve customer service to the public. And we're actually able to accomplish some other challenges that we've been having as far as just making sure that we're meeting our requirements under Bill 8 for managing citizen inquiries. So we're looking at catching up and getting some software that will essentially help improve service delivery, build trust with our community, and reduce staff effort. Right now, as far as managing inquiries, we're really just handling everything by email through our contact forms, and it's kind of getting us by, but there are some gaps in that. So we are looking at some tools, and I know Georgian Bluffs and Meaford are using a tool right now, which is one that we've explored, Access E11, and we've heard very good things. So we'd have to go to a public process through this, but that's some kind of a similar service if you're familiar with those that we'd be looking at getting. And within services like that, we also have the ability to kind of manage tickets and have a kind of work order system involved in that, which we don't currently have corporately. And I don't know if Jody can speak more to that, because that's really more of an IT thing away from the customer service side that I'm responsible for. And then on the other side, the engagement tools, this is again, looking at the corporate communication strategy and developing an engagement framework and making sure that we're engaging with the public in ways that they want to interact with us. And obviously digital is very important. Right now we use a mix of tools to survey the public, to get feedback on different things. So we're spending money in a few different programs corporately for that. What I'm looking to do is invest some money. So this would be a one-time spend, the $15,000, rather than buying or renting these digital tools that are out there. I'd use a platform like Bang the Table or Engagement HQ, which you might have heard a lot about. I'm hoping that since we use a Drupal-based web system, what we'll be able to do is actually build our own tools on our website. So we won't be paying that renewal fee year over year, which personally, I don't feel is really feasible for the county, because all of those tools seem to bill based on population size. So we have a significantly higher cost that we would see at the county for those tools than what you would see at the local municipalities to use those, when really we probably aren't even using those tools any more than the local municipality would be using them. We'd just be getting billed at a higher level.
So I heard customer service challenges. Can you further outline? I'm just having a hard time understanding, like, what's really driving the need. Is it just staff aren't able to process the emails coming in, or are the initiatives that the county's undertaking that we think we're under addressing because we don't do a good job of engaging? I just think there's many items. Again, I come back to click rate. You are able to have Jody's team go into any portal on our website, any page, and evaluate the clicks and determine the substance of everything. It's measurable. So are you able to put a measurement or really accurately define what's the service challenges that warrant the $20,000 expenditure for the citizen reporting tool? Like, are we about to undertake something that right now we don't do a good job of being able to consolidate the data that we're looking to gather?
So having a tool in place would allow us to track some of that data that's difficult for us to do. We can track total like email inquiries and things that way. We're not able to easily track the time spent on those inquiries, or to really in one dashboard see that these inquiries are being fully resolved and that customers are satisfied. These platforms do allow for direct communications with the residents through these tools, so that you have a lot simpler system to interact with them. Jody, I don't know if you have anything to add on the work order side, as well the internal uses to this.
Yes, through you, Mr. Warden, there's a couple of points there in terms of work orders. If you're managing a request from a resident and it's coming through by email, if you're working in a department that has a lot of those requests, then there's a couple of challenges with that. Number one, it could just be sitting in your email inbox and you have to address it. But if that's spread across multiple team members, then it's always the issue of who's handled that work, even if you're using a shared mailbox or something like that. So you kind of need a system to log in. Not just to see someone else has addressed it, but also that work gets captured in some sort of software to ensure that if whoever on the team is addressing that if they leave, whether it's a sick day or vacation, that there's a history of the work that's been done in case it's reopened, or again, if they're on vacation, that work still gets captured and addressed in a way that corresponds with our service level response times that we offer to residents. So that's one issue in terms of capturing it and handling it like work. In terms of the data and the analytics, if you're running anything in your department that has any complexities, again, even if it's just staff time, and then you really want to be able to capture that in software and be able to report on the data that's associated with the service. That's how you can use data to improve service. Because right now, a lot of what we're doing is just captured in, I guess, processes that need to be modernized. And that's the other point that I would like to make. When I spoke earlier in the year about the IT strategy plan, I brought sort of a rough model of how services that face the public can be modernized. Now, a lot of what we do now is fillable PDF forms. So when somebody gets that request on the website, they download it, they put in their responses, and they email it back to us. So again, that's not captured in a system where we can address the work. It's not captured in a system where we can get at the data and do any analytics on it. And it's not what you would call a modern experience for somebody, using the internet, where you just want to be able to fill in a form, hit submit, it's gone. And that's one of the things that we really want to achieve with that software. It also has some benefits with our cybersecurity approaches as well, because if you're doing anything that requires residents to actually send us additional content or additional documents, then it's better for us to be able to take that in through software and put some cybersecurity or some scanning on that content, as opposed to having it just come in on an email address, which has caused some problems for us in the past. That's it.
Thank you, Jody. I'm just wondering, Councillor Greg, or anyone else for that matter, is there a number you'd like to see cut out of that budget? Like a dollar amount? Is that where we're headed, or do you want to go through this line by line by line by line by line by line?
Well, I hate to skip through items too fast, and I found like this year we had consultants contributing to work that was, I guess it speaks to the communication strategy. Good example. Council's adopted that a few years ago. Now we're dealing with all the outcomes, and we're looking at, we started at 14.7% budget increase, and we're like, holy crap, where do we go? And it's all these outcomes of those studies. And now here's further, what's the tool going to do? What's the website engagement tool? There's subsequent costs to supporting all these. So I just am fearful of skipping through items too fast because it's 4:30 or 4 in the afternoon. And then we are in a challenging spot, 16 months or 18 months, staff are back in front of us saying, hey, I need a part-time and equivalent to support. And hey, council, you supported that in December of 23. So I appreciate it. In the lower municipality, nobody gets their road plowed and everyone complains to the councillor. At the upper tier, we just assume Pat's team plows it every 10 minutes because we never hear any concerns. So I guess that's an example of where what's the website engagement tool? We don't hear that many complaints as counselors at the upper tier level as compared to the lower tier. So it needs some extra explaining.
Fair enough. Okay, Rob, you're finished? Or, okay, any other questions for this piece of the budget? Otherwise, Mary Lou, you're back. Thank you. Welcome back.
If you'd like, I'll speak to the consulting, and thank you in advance for the question, Councillor Greg. So, Councillor Greg asked a question about how much professional consulting fees was built into the 2023 budget. There's $8,984,000 in total across all the budgets. Now that's based on, excuse me, the budget that was presented today. So if there's been adjustments made, that's not reflected. I will say that 83% of that is for capital. So for Rockwood Terrace redevelopment, the early on build for childcare in Hanover, and for the Durham base build for paramedic services. So if that gives you some idea. And then there's other capital money, obviously, but those are the largest ones. And then there's consulting for HR for the projects that they're running, et cetera. There's the climate change consulting, and some of that's grant funded as well. So it doesn't give you a true picture. That just tells you how much we've budgeted for consultants. And a lot of that is work that staff simply cannot do. If you'd like now, I'll move on to IT. We're still talking about capital. Jody and his team have a number of projects funded from reserve. So we put away money annually for these projects so that doesn't increase the spike to the levy. There's $123,200 for router firewall upgrades, $50,000 for a shed replacement as part of tower upgrades at Ceylon. And unless I've missed it since I've been here in since 2002, I don't remember any shed work there in Ceylon, unless it was very minor. $15,000 to finish up the 2023 upgrades to the phone system. And $6,000 for backup and power conditioning hardware. And there's a number of transfers to reserve set aside for future projects. $19,500 for IT security audits, $15,000 for upgrades, the wireless access points, $9,500 for corporate website updates, $21,400 for long-term care hardware updates. There's $500 for aerial imagery, $13,000 for photocopiers. They're on a life cycle replacement schedule. $23,100 for work on the tower infrastructure, $10,000 for IT strat plan reviews, $10,000 for updates to the phone system, and $1,800 for the long-term care server room air conditioning upgrades. Rob has talked about communications. He has some transfers reserved, so there's $12,100 for future initiatives for AV equipment. There's a $7,500 transfer to reserve for updates to the corporate communication strategy, and there's $6,000 for upgrades to equipment in the council chambers, and that's funded from reserve. Before I move off of administration, are there any further questions?
Anybody have any questions? Just if anybody's keeping score, and I know there's people far smarter than me in the back that are keeping score. We are currently sitting with what we've done so far today, an increase of $69.28 per average household. And that represents 6.3% increase over last year. Yes. That's for an average assessed house in Gray County, which is, I think, 240,000 or 350,000, something. 289, sorry. Okay. Anyway, that's where we're at. Doesn't mean that's where we stop, but that's where we're at. If, for anybody that's interested in keeping score here. Okay, Mary Lou, carry on, please.
Forgot.
I wonder, with these next few items, WSIB, and short-term disability, et cetera, those are information items rather than things that we really can, have much effect on. So I don't know if anybody has any questions about those, then we can certainly answer them, but they're not really an opportunity for council to have an impact, so.
Counselor Mackey.
I was just wondering if you knew offhand what the changes to CPP were going to cost the county.
For you, Mr. Warden, I don't have that exact number, no. We just, it's a combination of things for us. There's new people, there's COLA, there's non-union comp. But I can bring that back and just tell you overall how much it is.
It just speaks to another one of those things that are out of our control, that a lot of this levy increase are things that we had nothing to do about either.
Yeah, that's right. Mary Lou.
Okay, so I'll move on. The IS budget, all I'll say is that's the cost of running the network and it's divided by the number of computers on the network. The assessment budget, I talked at the beginning of the meeting about MPAC and our costs being up more than $40,000 than we'd estimated. So that's all been incorporated into the changes today. The property budget, there isn't really anything to say about it. It's a very nominal increase of 14,700, including operating and capital. That's the cost of this building and the building that's just immediately south of us that we rent to CMHA. There's a bit of money spent in capital, so we're putting in charging units here, the same as some of the other buildings, some lighting and security updates as a result of where we'll put chargers, transfer to reserve for future capital, and the big one is the $706,500 that we self-funded for the debenture to put on the part of the building that we're sitting in today. Taxation and grants, this is decreased by $153,600, result of a reduction in the budget for tax write-offs. Have to see where that goes. We're already seeing some early changes, and I've mentioned this before. When we do tax policy, and I'll just have Peter speak to it, he calls these phantom shifts. So property changed hands, it flipped into res. And some of you are seeing that it was actually supposed to be in farm and then it flips to farm. Councillor McQueen's nodding his head. Councillor Nielsen, they understand what I mean. This has been an issue that's raised by their treasurer. Health unit, we've already talked about. We removed the increase and we'll fund that from Safe Restart. Healthcare initiatives, we already talked about. We trimmed that down to a levy of $209,500. And the final year of the Marine program contribution for Georgian College, as part of the reduction opportunities for 2023, we funded that from one-time funding, and that's the way it is again this year. So this is the last year of the contribution. And with that, that is the end of corporate services. Were there any further questions on corporate services? Okay. All right. The very last thing we had in our package, if you want to discuss it, is reserves. I will say that we're going to have to go back and update the reserve schedules based on some adjustments that have been made during the budget meetings. It does show, as we've Oh, Sarah's good enough. She's gonna bring this up on the screen for me. Thank you. Flip to the next screen. No, there we go. It's an interesting slide only, so the discretionary reserves are the ones that we have, you could so choose to move these around, you could choose to do different things. What you're seeing here is at the end of 2022, we had over $70 million in reserve. At the end of 2024, we're expecting that to be under 38 million. So there's a lot of reserve money that has either been used in 2023 or budgeted for 2024. And we'll flip to the next one. And the next screen just shows you that the difference between 2022 and 2024 is a decrease of $32.7 million. And the bulk of that obviously is in capital. And the next screen. This shows the obligatory reserves. So development charges and gas tax. So there's restrictions on how those can be used, and we can't obviously use them for other purposes. So you can see, like at the end of 2022, we were sitting at $36.5 million in reserves. And at the end of 2024, we're projecting that down to be $23.5 million. So some of this will be a combination of what we're seeing in a decrease in development charges and increased use, and that increase comes from the transportation department. And the gas tax money, or the CCBF, that is transportation. So that's just to give you an idea of where the reserves have been and where we see them going.
Thank you, Mary Lou. Are there any questions on the reserves? Okay, not seeing any. That, those numbers that I gave earlier, I think I believe they still stand. I'll ask Sue if we're still there. Yep. So that brings us to 6.3 over last year and an increase of $69.28 per average house in Grey County. So, Councillor Gregg.
My only question to staff is, there's a revenue recognition of interest income, which is greater than 1% of the levy increase. Has that been updated, or I presume, like, you'll certainly capture that, but that is based upon what starting point and what impact does that also have?
Through you, Mr. Warden. So that's based on the investment income that we're budgeting, and anything beyond 1% of what our levy is goes to the one-time funding reserve. So when the 1% changes, then that number changes slightly as well. That's correct. So that typically is used for either one-time things or exceptional circumstances. The reason we do that is you don't want to take too much investment income into and reduce your levy. So we know that investment income is not going to stay where it is currently. It's expected to go down next year. So you don't want to create a deficit for yourself in the current year and then a budget shortfall starting into the next budget cycle.
Thank you, Mary Lou. Any further questions? Okay, there's one final question or one final motion, Sarah? Or what's that? Oh, okay. All right. So there's some number crunching going on. Are we going to get to that motion today or no? If council wishes, we can make a motion to adopt or to, what would be the right word? Prepare a draft budget based on the numbers that you have received today or we've achieved today. Is council ready to do that? Councillor Mackey. Please make that motion if you're willing to, sir.
Thanks, Mr. Warden. I will move that we draft a budget based on the 6.3% levy increase.
Okay, is there a seconder to that motion? Councillor Eccles? Any further discussion? And that actually the direction is to, or the motion is to direct staff to create the budget or the draft budget. Right, bring forward the bylaw to adopt those things. Okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. One more motion. Counselor Eccles, move to adjourn. Seconder, Counselor Pringle, all in favor? Thank you very much. We are adjourned, and I believe this is the last time the county council will meet prior to the holiday. So I want to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and a safe and healthy Happy New Year. We are adjourned.